In March of 1996, game developer and publisher Capcom released Resident Evil. Originally known as Biohazard in Japan, Resident Evil's gameplay focused on making the player feel isolated and alone, struggling for resources against a mansion filled with zombies and other abominations, defining what we know as survival horror. By December of 1997, between the original game and the director's cut, worldwide Resident Evil had sold over 4 million copies, grossing over $200 million. To say that it was successful would be a tremendous understatement. The Resident Evil franchise is absolutely massive now. With spin-offs and remakes, there's currently 30 games in the series. Including Welcome to Raccoon City, there's 7 live-action films, multiple animated feature films, an animated miniseries, a Netflix series I would really rather not talk about, graphic novels, merchandise, and a partridge in a pear tree. As of 2024, it's estimated that the franchise has grossed close to $9.5 billion worldwide. But no matter how large a franchise gets, there is one thing they will never stop doing, and that is advertising their product. Unlike brands such as Coca-Cola and McDonald's, whose ads simply serve to remind us that these companies still exist, as they have very little to offer in the way of new products, when it comes to the advertising of a new video game, it's all about the hype. The advertising of a new game can be fairly simple. Sometimes all it takes to get people interested is showing off an in-game cutscene. However, over the years, marketing agencies have tried all sorts of gimmicks to make games stand out even more and generate further hype for their release. Appealing to the rebellious nature of teenagers and young adults, Dead Space 2 was marketed with the tagline, "Your mum hates this." These ads showed focus groups of women reacting to gameplay of Dead Space 2. They were not impressed.
Why would they even make something like this?
You just don't get it, do you? You don't.
Infamously, in 2007, for the launch of God of War 2, game journalists attending a press event in Athens, Greece, competed in a series of challenges, which included retrieving a key from a box filled with snakes, a knife-throwing competition, and eating a traditional Greek soup in a room with a dead goat. While this was obviously in poor taste, it was far from what the media made it out to be, the most outrageous claim being that guests at the event were invited to reach inside the goat's still warm carcass to eat offal from its stomach. This was of course not true. Organisers of the event had simply purchased it from a local butcher, no one had to touch it, and it was not slaughtered on site. However, facing backlash from animal rights organisations, Sony apologised for the stunt and now pretends like it never happened. The only video I was able to find of it coming from YouTube's weird cousin, Dailymotion. The God of War 2 launch party is a good example of a publicity stunt gone wrong. However, in 2009, Capcom ran a publicity stunt so insane it realistically had no chance of going right. In a stunt that could have only come from the mind of a madman, to promote the highly anticipated release of Resident Evil 5, Monument PR, on behalf of Capcom, organised a competition in which participants would follow a list of clues to 14 locations around London's Trafalgar Square area in search of realistic-looking fake body parts. The infected have been and gone, but they have left behind the remains of their victims. Find the bodies on the morning of Thursday, March 12th and win a holiday to Africa. Once contestants had collected as many pieces as possible, they were to head to the finish line at Westminster Bridge, where they would shout the phrase "Kajuju." Event organisers would then approach them and tally up their points. Any limbs found would be worth 2 points, torsos were worth 3, and heads 5 points. The contestant with the most points at 11 AM would be crowned the winner. It does not take a genius to see that this was a terrible idea, and yet this is a revelation that seemed to elude the marketing team behind it. Things went off the rails almost immediately, as while the competition didn't begin until 9 AM, the parts had been left at their designated locations in the early hours of the morning, meaning members of the public who were not aware of the competition were free to find them. The police were called because, obviously, that's just what you do when you see someone running around holding a leg or think you've found a head in a bin, and that's not an exaggeration.
It was more dodgy when we picked the head out of the bin and covered in blood.
Every article I've read talks about how realistic these things looked, and yeah, they are definitely a step above a mannequin. At a distance, it's easy to see how people might think they were actually real. I'm doing my best to show what I can here, however, I obviously have to censor some things as I don't want YouTube to absolutely nuke this video out of existence. But as the old saying goes, it's all fun and games until the cops show up, and show up they did, according to reports eventually dispersing the crowd. The competition ending early with Steve Long crowned the winner, trainer, who, having worked as a part of a team, had collected 3 heads, a torso and 5 limbs for a total of 28 points, winning the trip for 2 to Africa. Other participants were not left empty-handed, as event organisers had been giving out bags and copies of Resident Evil 5. While they had caused a mild panic that saw calls to the police, contestants being followed by concerned members of the public, and at least one scuffle.
Did anybody spot you? Did you get any funny looks?
We got loads of followed.
You got followed?
Other people looking.
Was this from fighting people to get hold of the limbs?
There was a bit of scuffling involved. Some people did not agree to us getting the items.
None of the contestants nor Monument PR or Capcom were charged over the incident. However, with the competition over, there was now a new problem. While all the parts had been moved from their original locations, not all were accounted for at the finish line, leading Capcom to release a statement. The parts are very realistic and we don't want people to be alarmed by them. They've all been taken from their original positions, but we now have no idea where they are. If you have them, please either return them or dispose of them in a responsible and careful manner. In addition, chicken livers were used for added gore, and uncooked they can be dangerous.
Are you serious?
There's a certain level of irony in a marketing stunt designed to promote a game originally known as Biohazard, potentially causing a biohazard by leaving bits of raw chicken around a city. A spokesperson for Monument PR also stated if there is no news of them, we will have to inform the police. In the end, 6 limbs, 2 torsos, and a head were never recovered. On the Resident Evil fandom wiki, it says these were either kept by participants or by curious pedestrians. Really? Curious pedestrians? 'Cause that's normal human behavior. Hey look, an arm, that's pretty neat. I think I'll take that home and show the missus. Resident Evil 5 was released in Europe the following day, on Friday the 13th of March 2009. Neither bad luck nor a botched marketing stunt impeding its success, going on to be one of the best-selling games in the franchise. However, the real question is, did anyone learn a lesson from this? And I want to say, yeah, kind of. To promote the 2010 release of Resident Evil Afterlife in Spain, advertising agency Bungalow 25 installed realistic zombie limbs around the main streets of Madrid, giving the impression of a zombie horde rising up from their underground containment facility. Unlike the London treasure hunt where parts were just left lying around, these limbs were given some context, with signage attached next to them mitigating the panic. Some people seemed curious, others seemed put off by the display, most didn't seem to know what to make of it. At least one person spoke to the police, who didn't seem too bothered by the installation. Sadly, I don't speak Spanish and wasn't able to get this translated. If you know what they're saying, please let me know in the comments. While this was a step in the right direction when it comes to not causing a panic, it was far from Resident Evil's most shocking publicity stunt, a stunt that didn't seem to cause any real panic. In 2012, as a part of the No Hope Left advertising campaign for Resident Evil 6, open for just 2 days in September, was Wesker & Son Human Butchery and Morgue. Located in London's Smithfield Market, the pop-up butcher featured, among other things, hands and feet made of meat, a pretty gnarly looking prosciutto arm, a body made of pork, and sausages that were shaped in a very suggestive way that redefined the term cocktail weenie. All of these items were available for purchase, with the proceeds of Wesker & Son being donated to the Limbless Association, a UK charity that supports amputees. Aside from being called Wesker & Son, fans were treated to other references from the game, such as red and green herbs. This was a spectacle that some people undoubtedly found to be a bit gross. I did not expect to be jump scared by a sausage when researching this, but here we are. However, unlike the treasure hunt or the Madrid installation, in being confined to just one location and having people there to explain what was going on, it was immediately recognizable as a publicity stunt, if albeit a rather grim one. In July of 2024, Capcom confirmed that Resident Evil 9 is officially in development. At the time of writing this, not much is known about it, but I know one thing: you can be damn sure they will find a unique way to promote it. From alternate reality games, shocking public installations, and oddly adorable anime shorts, to leaving fake body parts lying around a city causing a panic, losing some of them in the process, and opening a pop-up butcher designed to cater for Hannibal Lecter. Resident Evil has a history of being marketed in unique, interesting, and slightly shocking ways. And I, for one, love Capcom and the marketing teams in charge of these stunts for that. What they decide to do with Resident Evil 9, we'll just have to wait and see. Realistically, with how loved the franchise is, they don't have to do much, and millions of fans will gladly hand over their hard-earned cash. But whatever they do, it's guaranteed to be memorable, adding yet another chapter to this storied franchise. Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching, and a special thanks to our top patrons JBalls902 and Joseph. If you can't tell, I'm a bit of a Resident Evil fan, and also as someone who likes talking about mass hysteria events and public scares, I couldn't not talk about the treasure hunt, which led into talking about some of the more insane marketing stunts they've pulled. I haven't just been working on this though, I've got a video about Y2K coming out soon, as well as a bit of Pokemon hysteria for you, among other things. Again, thank you all so much for watching, I hope you enjoyed it, but be sure to tune in next time where we talk about Bigfoot, the undisputed heavyweight champion of hide and seek.